Hey guys, so this might be one of the coolest videos I bring you for a long time. um, Not sure if this tops the all glass ERS or some other cool stuff we found recently, but it's definitely near the top, not at the very top. This is an Ornate Tara Fan. Many of you know my story with the Tara Fan. There was a lumber yard in a suburb near my parents' house that had a brown and brass plain one over the stairs that led up to the offices. And it was one of many fans that I was obsessed with as a child, but it stuck with me because I never saw another one. And I looked for them every garage sale I went to. I kept hoping I'd find one, never found one. Never saw a picture of one, never knew the name brand, never knew anything about it, so it just stuck with me. And eventually I had the idea to post a sketch of it online, and I did, and it finally got identified, and I did some research, and, found out that it was a Texas company, and, mainly sold to Texas and southern states and whatnot, and I actually ended up cold calling the founders of the company. They'd also owned a storm door company, and they were looking for a product they could sell in the off-season, and the owner of the company didn't really want to talk about it much, although then later he found my website and called me, maybe not realizing we'd talked before, and he was a lot more talkative. But my first go-round, I spoke to the lawyer for the company, who told me a lot of stories, and he was one of the first people that told me there was an ornate version. And I can't remember if by this point somebody had sent me a picture of one, or if that was the first I'd heard of it. It happened around the same time. Somebody else had sent me an email, had 2 Tara fans for sale. One was an all-white one, and one was an ornate one with plain blades and no light. And he said, "Oh, these are up in my attic. I'd sell them." And I said, "How much?" And he wanted, I think, like $250 for the brass one and like $150 for the white one. And I was basically a kid at the time. This was 15 years ago or more. I didn't have that kind of money, and so I couldn't do it. And so he didn't sell them. He said, "Fine, they'll stay in my attic." And, years later, I found his email again. I reached out to him again and said, "Hey, now I could afford it. He's still selling those fans." And then he wanted like $350 or something for the one, and he wanted even more, is my point. And so I let it go. This is the third ornate version that I've seen in pictures or in person. This is the first one I've seen in person, obviously. But that one that the guy had that he wanted the $250 for was the first one I saw. And then there was one on, I think, Craigslist on the West Coast that I tried to get unsuccessfully for the museum. And now this one. And my intention is to put it in the museum. I would consider, robbing a switch cap off another one and putting it in my living room. But I really like the Columbia in my living room, and I really think this deserves to go in the museum, so it's probably not going to go in the living room. But that's a thought that I've had. This is all original. The cane blades and the Tiffany light, they were all bought together at a store in Florida. I got this from the original family. Mother, father, son all bought it together on a family trip. And father passed on, but son and mother are still around. And so yeah, I'd like to keep this one together, and the light shade definitely wouldn't go in my living room, but it would go in the museum. So we'll see. And the other thing about putting it in the museum is we're running out of space. So I have 2 really important fans I'd like to put in the museum soon, the Rossetti and this. And I only have 1 space left that was actually destined for a Malibu star. There's 1 globe left. If you look at the videos in the museum, there's 1 globe light left hanging kind of over there by the wicker fan with the disco ball motor. And Tom was getting a Malibu star, and he wanted to put it somewhere, and so that's where I was going to put it. Then I got the Rossetti, and I'm like, okay, that's more important. But now there's this. So basically, for both this and the Rossetti to go in the museum, unless I can find a space that I'm not aware of right now, make room somewhere that I'm not aware of right now, something else would have to come down. So I might do a poll in the kids group, what should come down for this to go up. Like I said, next time I go there and work, I'll see if by some miracle I can make a space, but it's not going to be easy because everything's in there really tight. So let's just take a look here. This one needs a little TLC before it goes there anyways. The bearings are a little stiff. They're not bad, they're a little stiff. It does have the plastic piece on the top of the motor, so I want to replace that with something safer. Let's see what the serial number is. 33381. I wonder if the 81 is the year. Did not adjust the control. So this is the factory low. 0.6, that's quite high for a factory low. These either have GE motors or K55s. Like Homestead, they alternated. The first ones only used GE, and then at some point they had a batch of K55s. I actually did not look close at this to see which it has. Low power factor. Return. Return. Close to high. Yeah, that's pretty much high right there. So here's another interesting thing about this one. It has a slot for reverse switch, but it's not. There's no reverse switch in it. So I don't know if the reverse switch is just inside and it came loose, or if it's not reversible. So it's the same type of K55 that we see in a lot of things. It draws, 1.1 something. Those seem pretty common in non-casablancas. Other thing that's interesting thing about this is that the top plate is plain. The top plate goes to a plain fan. It only has one side of it ornate. The other two that I've seen, both sides are ornate. So clearly, they just did whatever they wanted with parts at the factory. Let's see if I can see what motor's in there. Looks like the GE. Okay, so you can see the bearings are still a little stiff. But they're not noisy, so I think a little oil on the bench will be fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. The one in the museum, which had new bearings and varnished windings and, all that kind of TLC, had trouble starting on 5, but this one starts on 4 even with the stiff bearings. So here's another story. Second Tara Fan I ever got is actually the one that's in the museum. And I bought it online when I lived in Virginia. I lived in Central Virginia, and so it was shipped to me there. So I varnished the windings and replaced the bearings at my place in Central Virginia, and then hung it in my bedroom in Central Virginia. And I had it on a Newtone 4-speed control, which was 5, 10, 15. Here's 6. And I thought the low speed was just great with the 5, 10, 15. I thought actually the whole range of speed was great. So that was before I was doing videos, so there's no videos of my place in Central Virginia. Brian Hicks had visited there. It's a long story, but Pierce Phillips visited there after I left. So it was in this Art Deco apartment building from the 30s. Very old, very cool apartment building with a lot of white molding and stuff like that. 9 and 10 foot ceilings, flat ceilings, not vaulted, but high ceilings. Wood floors, huge windows. The only thing, and the rent was very, very cheap, even for that time. 9. Only thing I didn't like was that the kitchen was tiny. It had just the smallest kitchen. I thought it was horribly useless kitchen. Had one of those half stoves. 10. 11. So, when I moved in, there was a Harbor Breeze Cheshire in the living room, which is how I learned that those were, actually decent fans. And a chandelier in the dining room, and some original 1930s lights in the 2 bedrooms, and a fluorescent light in the kitchen. 12. And I put a veranda deluxe with a 4-light kit and stencil blades in the living room, and then the 36-inch version of that in the dining room. And they were, it was a separate dining room, but you could see it from the living room, so it looked nice to have the 2 matching fans. And then in the master bedroom, I put the Tara with the stencil blades, and in the second bedroom, I put a Thomas Fasco hugger that I got from Louis Weedman. Four, 14, sorry. 15. I tried a few other things. At one point, I had a 38-inch Four Seasons in the bedroom with a bell canopy, which was one of those like big room, tiny, because it was a huge bedroom. This was a huge apartment. It was a beautiful place, 16. And I had as one of those tiny fan, big room installs in the master bedroom. And then at one point I swapped the Newtone in the living room for a Columbia 2 with cane blades. 17. Getting close. 18. I bet you 19 is going to be over. Let's see. Well, if it's not, it's close. Interesting, there's more hum on 19 that goes away when I do 20. Or it goes away when I do high, excuse me. 20's over. Considerably. Okay. I will cautiously do 0 to high on this, because I do worry about that plastic bracket. I don't want to torque it too hard. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. This one has a flywheel that I haven't seen before. It's the closest I've ever seen is the flywheel that comes on Marley's and Patton's and Fasco American Spirits. It's not identical. It's definitely a flywheel make that I've not seen on a Tara before. So let's see here. 1.16 and dropping. So I'll give this fan the TLC that it's earned, and it will have a rightful place of honor. Again, my intention is in the museum. Living room is a possibility, but again, I love the Columbia. I really don't want to swap it, we talked the other day about stuff I would swap it for. This is on the list. That Quorum is on the list. I know that it seems silly to some people to compare Quorum to this, but these fans I think look cool enough to make that room cool. And iFan is on the list. But, I'll turn the light on. Yeah, so we'll see. Another thought that I'm not going to do, but it's a thought, is to swap it for the one in my parents' dining room. But then I would have no plain Tara hanging up in Madison. So, talk a little bit about Taras before I cut the camera and installs. Because I keep getting asked why I don't have one in my house here. And the reason is because in my living room, I didn't want a plain fan because it's kind of a plain room if you don't do anything to it. If you know what I mean. It's flat ceiling. It's a 8.5 or 9 foot ceiling. So I've got the light on and the motor, and I'm just seeing when it'll start. There we go. 14. I'm gonna drop it back some. 13. Yep, 14 is when it starts. So I'm walking over here to trigger the motion lights again. I'll adjust that timer one day. So, yeah, I thought a plain Tara just wouldn't, I wanted something that really where the fan is just like bam in that space, so that it made a kind of plain room into a not plain room. Columbia 500 does that, an iFan would do that. I just didn't think a plain Tara was quite fancy enough. A plain Tara, actually, the perfect install for me, for my childhood version, was in my condo living room. If you saw the first fan I ever put there, that was the exact version of the Tara from my childhood, on a vaulted ceiling with like a 1 foot or 18-inch down rod. That was just, to me, that did the Tara justice. And so there's really no other place in my house to put one. I could put one in the music room, but it would be a bit of a stretch. I could put one in the bedroom, but I think even a plain Tara is a little fancy for a bedroom, or at least a bedroom like that, and I think the Island Fans is perfect, and it's another very important childhood fan. So, the bottom line is I don't have an ideal place to put one in my house that I can think of. And so, but it doesn't bother me because there's one in my parents' house. I want to see a Tara hanging, or if somebody visits and they want to see one hanging. Yeah, I go to my parents' house. It's right there in the dining room. I have tried not to double up too many installs between the two houses, since I still go over there, every week. And with the industrials in the garage and the industrials in the laundry room, there's some overlap. But not much, just really the point and mortar gold line. And everything else is different. What's in the downstairs? Yeah, kind of overlap with the blender fan, but it's a different size and finish. So yeah, it's and it's ironic that this one has the same style of blades that the one in the dining room does, when you consider that the one in the dining room, those are classic fan blades that I put on there. They're different blades, like they're a lighter weight. I can't remember if they have the cardboard cutouts the way that Hunter Original cane blades would, but they're definitely lighter weight blades than these. Because if you put those classic fan blades on, turn the fan on high, it's just like it doesn't know what to do with such a light load. But yeah, so this is a possibility for the living room, but again, I'd rather give it a spot in the museum. Kind of a weird wobble that it's doing right now. Yeah, I have nothing really else to say about it. Again, we'll figure out. It's hanging somewhere, whether it's in the museum or here, but it's not going to sit. It will be up somewhere, I'll say, by the next group trip. Because, again, this is the only one in collector possession, I guess is one way to put it. Just like anything cool that I find, presumably now they'll start coming out of the woodwork, because that's always how it seems, is you find the first one and then everybody finds one. Although that's not always the case. I don't think anybody else has any Gear Drive Columbia 500s or Odyssey Creations or stuff like that. But I would certainly be happy if more of these came out of the woodwork, and I would trade for them or buy them. One thing I'm not aware of is whether or not this version, the ornate version, came in other finishes. I'd love to see a chrome ornate one. I seem to recall somebody telling me that they only came in antique-brass, the ornate version. But that's just like Tom saying that Casablanca never made a polished brass 20th century, and then we found one. So, plus it would be easy enough to, you know, if you want a brown and brass one, fine, just swap the parts that aren't ornate and make them brown, you know. If you want a white and brass one, same thing. So... okay, well, I think that video is more than long enough. I just wanted a chance to talk a little bit more about the Tara fans and to get to observe this one a little more. So, thanks for watching. Next time you see it, hopefully it'll be hanging up somewhere.